2020 has been a phenomenal year in so many different ways. And it's not just the global pandemic that I'm talking about, even though that has pretty much disrupted entire humanity. We also had various things like riots. We had natural disasters like hurricanes and tornadoes that came about. We also had wildfires that brought in a dystopian atmosphere in many organizations and many places, right? For example, personally, I live in California and I was just around less than 200 feet away from the wildfires. And it was a very scary time for me where I had to pack my bags and be able to abandon everything that I owned and pick up my family and go to safety. It's been really difficult and hard for all of us. And it's been a very tough year for people who are optimistically naive like us, where we are trying our level best to find that silver lining in all this adversity. But here are a couple of things that have happened which have actually helped us. This global pandemic, the lockdown and the social distancing has created a situation and a compelling event for humanity to evolve more towards a digital environment. So digital first has become one of the most driving factors since 2020. In addition to that, apart from the jokes that a number of people make that we finally learned how to wash our hands in 2020, we also learned that we feel much more comfortable in a contactless environment, in a contactless world, because we're so scared about the pathogen and about the pandemic spreading around us. So most of the companies have had to adopt their business model towards a contactless environment. And in addition to that, because of lockdown and social distancing protocols, the entire world had to shift to a remote environment. And that caused considerable strain and anxiety and stress within the community. Just imagine, people had to immediately forego all their familiar constructs, their familiar motions, getting up in the morning, going to work, grabbing a coffee on the way, dropping the kids at school. All those things completely disappeared. And while a number of people, especially in organizations, they say that this is more similar to working from home, what I fundamentally believe is that this is more akin to existence from home. We have been stressed. We have a lot of anxieties. We suddenly are afraid of a lot of things, and our basic needs have been impacted by this pandemic and its fallout and repercussions. In addition to that, we have lost our sense of love and caring and belonging, and that has added additional stress to us. And for people who are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it has shook the foundation of that particular pyramid. And that's why we have so much of stress and anxiety level within organizations and within ourselves. Almost every industry vertical has been impacted in some way, shape, or form. Travel and hospitality have been hit really, really hard. Travel, especially because of the fear of lockdown, fear of infection, social distancing. From a hospitality perspective, people are scared to stay in a hotel or an Airbnb because they don't know how well it was sanitized before. They want and they crave for that contactless experience, which is really hard to get in a hospitality sector. From a retail perspective, and from a food industry perspective, we've had different challenges, such as supply chain logistics, people having to shutter down their restaurants because of the social distancing norms and lockdown protocols. Retail organizations have had to get away from the reliance on brick and mortar stores and go into a curbside delivery or a home delivery, or even introduce more digital aspects such as buy online and pick up in stores. And that has really impacted us. And over the last year and a half, what I would like to say is that this pandemic has been that compelling event for a lot of organizations to look at their existing business models, their existing business transformation plans, and then try to find out a way how they can expedite that delivery. My name is Dr. Gautam Palapa, and I'm an executive advisor at VMware. I work with executives and transformation leaders in industries ranging from the Fortune 500 to Global 2000s and help them on their transformation journey. And over the last year, I've helped companies in different sectors. And one key theme that I've found is that all of these companies have had to abandon or redirect, in many cases, rethink and reimagine the way that they're going to conduct business and how they're going to deliver value and expedite delivery to their customers. And that's what we're going to be talking about today throughout this entire session. I'm going to tell two stories. The first one is focused around how engineering has helped expedite delivery with one of the customers that I've worked with. Another story is how you can think differently and perform an activity that could potentially take a lot of time. And so through all of this, the entire theme is going to be how to rethink and reimagine your processes, the current problems that you're facing, and how we can solve all these problems. But first, if you're going to talk about expedited delivery, the three most important drivers are lean, agile, and DevOps. In particular, we want to bring in that lean experimentation, right? To bring that build, measure, learn concepts and feedback loops. Next, we want to bring in agile software development and delivery. And for organizations that don't do software, these concepts still hold true. For example, in my role, I pair with the chief digital officer or the chief information officer or the chief technical officer to drive to business outcomes that we need to accomplish as part of their business transformation journey. And then finally, you have DevOps, which really reduces the manual toil, increases automation, and brings in that operational efficiency and quick delivery of value. So lean, agile, and DevOps are the most important transformation drivers. But with this pandemic, we really need to rethink and reimagine the way we approach some of these problems. In startups, it's pretty easy. You have this concept of entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurship is where you can just get things done. You don't have to worry about processes. You don't have to worry about getting approval by committee. You don't have to get approval and to even go ahead and try to run an experiment. It's easy for them. They think of something, they imagine it, they brainstorm, and then they go. And that's really powerful. But how about enterprises? In enterprises, we have all those other constraints and overheads. We don't have that much of leeway. But what I want to tell you today is that there is hope for people who are working in enterprises. And that is by becoming an intrapreneur. An entrepreneur is someone who has the spirit of an entrepreneur, but is stuck within an enterprise. This can be for a number of reasons. It could be someone who really loves working on big enterprise software, but who has that entrepreneurial spirit. It could also be people who are unable to join startups or have a startup of their own. For example, there are a number of people who are legal immigrants who cannot and who are not allowed to start their own companies or be an entrepreneur. So for those people who still have the entrepreneurial spirit, we want to have the concept of entrepreneurship brought in. So today, I'm going to be talking about two awesome stories that highlight this entrepreneurial spirit and how teams thought about different approaches to solve the same problem that could have traditionally been attacked. And what I would like you to do and encourage you to do throughout these stories is to put yourselves in their shoes. Think about how this relates to your organization, what you would have done in this kind of a situation. Make notes and figure out how you can implement a similar experiment or something on the same lines and bring in the values of entrepreneurship through being an entrepreneur. So the first one is around how engineering solved a great problem, or how I fondly like to call it, how I took my team out and opened a $7,000 bottle of bourbon, and we celebrated with cigars. So here's the premise. We had to move a legacy middleware that had been there for a number of years over to a cloud native solution that had been identified by enterprise architecture. And that was the direction that the company had to go. There was a team that was already doing it, but unfortunately, that previous team tried and they failed for 8 months. And in true enterprise fashion, they decided to turn it over to us and say, you're it, and then walk away from the project. And the timing was terrible for that, and I'll get to that in a bit. But what we had to do as part of engineering was we needed to solve this problem. And we needed to really rethink and reimagine the way that we attack this problem and rescue this initiative. So brainstorming with my teams, I said, this is a great use case for building entrepreneurship by having a team of entrepreneurs. And if you all are familiar with Dr. Bruce Tuckman's group development theory, which is every team that is forming has to go through 4 stages, that is forming, storming, norming, and before they can perform. That was the same concept that we decided to enable here as well. We wanted to accelerate team bonding, collaboration, and empathy and communication. And so for that, I designed an experiment where my hypothesis was that if I would have this team aggressively work on a problem that is completely unrelated to the team's focus and have them form, storm, and norm quickly around that particular problem, then maybe I would be able to harness the momentum that they've gained and use that momentum that was generated and to drive throughput for the long-term focus of the team by at least 15%. I was completely wrong about my estimation of the throughput, and we'll get to some of the fantastic results that came out of it. So here's the story. And I said that the timing was really bad. They tossed it over to us 4 days before Christmas. And I remember that really well, and because I was very upset to start with. And I told the team that we are not going to give up our personal lives to solve this problem. We're going to celebrate Christmas and New Year's, but we're going to come afresh and we're going to run things a little different. So we formed the team. We ran a lean experiment, and this lean experiment was only for 2 weeks, and that was driving the hypothesis. We focused on a problem that was completely unrelated. The team knocked it out of the park. Jake Knapp's Sprint is a phenomenal book. We use that a lot to drive to the outcomes that we wanted to achieve. 1 week iterations, it was extremely radical at that time. And we were able to quickly achieve the outcomes that we wanted. And we even filed a patent for it. And that was awesome. And then we went full steam ahead on the actual team. We ran over 27 lean experiments out of it. And I'm really proud to say that the team was able to have high availability in production, so at least 2 production sites, within 8 weeks. Remember, the previous team took about 8 months and they failed on it. We had a really small team. It was 4 engineers and a developer. I decided to be the product owner to provide air cover and also for accountability because I was aggressively pushing the team and wanted to have be the person accountable for the success or the failure. Short iterations, that was 1 week each. We had tons of experiments that we ran, automation from the get-go, and we broke every single record. In the past, for example, it was taking 3 to 4 months to go to production. This team, they developed, they had the dev environment stood up in 12 days, a release pipeline in 6 days, and we had 2 production sites in the next 18 days. That was phenomenal. And that was 8 weeks or 7.5 weeks, so to speak. And this was awesome. And so I decided to take the team out. We went and opened a $7,000 bottle of bourbon. We smoked cigars and we celebrated. And my lead engineer, in true nerdy fashion, was also tracking his blood pressure during the time that he was working on this project. And I have this permission to share his stats. And if you can see, between July to September was when we ran this particular experiment, his blood pressure actually lowered and he was super excited. He was having fun. That is, we also identified that the failure of one team is validated learning for an entire organization, and we were able to signal that within the teams. That is the power of rethinking and reimagining. The next story is about performance testing. A lot of it is about eating pie, but this is where we had a lot of fun. We hardly slept for about 48 hours of this. Performance testing. It can be a little intense, but the premise was that we were on a cloud journey. We had identified the tons of application service, Pivotal Cloud Foundry, for some of the people who know Pivotal, as a hybrid cloud approach. And our leadership wanted us to do all kinds of performance tests to validate and ensure that our solution that we're deploying will be able to handle the critical workloads that we have. If we were to approach this in a traditional way, it would take us about 4 to 6 months, and that was not acceptable. And so we wanted to think of a different way. We started brainstorming, and then we came up with the solution that why not have fun while we're performance testing? And so we came up with a hackathon. We were going to crowdsource performance testing and have everyone within the organization help us. And thus was born the Pi Day Hackathon. It was March 12th to 14th, because Pi Day is one of the geekiest days, the second one being Star Wars Day. It was 48 hours of intense coding. It was open to all employees. We allowed any bold idea. It did not have to be anything within our portfolio. People could work on anything that they wanted, as long as it was legal, and as long as the team had 3 to 4 people. And I wanted to use this as an opportunity to help transform the culture of the organization as well. And so some of the rules were that they had to demonstrate working software. I wanted to put the developers into more discomfort so that they could learn better. And so I said that they have to create a video that showcases the business value of their particular product or their idea, and they're not allowed to show code. And it had to be a minimum of 3 minutes, a lot of discomfort, right? And then because we were also doing a performance testing, I said it must be deployed at least 3 times. So we ran a number of social experiments, ranging from adoption to learning to embracing entrepreneurship within the organization, for how much of discomfort the teams would be able to embrace, and how many of them would be change agents and actually feel psychologically safe within the organization. We also had a ton of functional experiments that we were running around performance testing, failure, failover, fire drills, and so on. And I wanted to change the behavior because we were also trying to change the way people thought. So for context, in the past, it was taking 183 days from concept, that is idea, to creation of value or implementation. That was 183 days for the entire path to production. And that was not sustainable, and it was not acceptable either. In addition to that, I wanted to change the mindset within the organization, where they had this mindset of 100% uptime and 0 defects, and failure is not an option. And we wanted to have them understand that it's okay to strive for perfection as long as you never achieve it. And this comes out of the tenet of continuous improvement, or improvement kata, for those of you who are familiar with Lean Six Sigma. And this is what we wanted to drive, in addition to having tons of fun. So the first annual Pi Day Hackathon was a global event. It was a great success. We had 26 teams around the world, 18 of them finished with videos. We had 3 patent filings as a result of all of this. We even had HR and accounting teams work and collaborate really well with the development community to solve some of their problems. We then collected a ton of data. performance, telemetry, validated learning, all the various things. We had the operators get some real world experience. One of our environments went down during the hackathon, and they had real world experience of bringing things up. And so that was very valuable. And the best thing that I really loved about it is, remember I said it was taking 183 days to just get to production? We were able to generate 648 commits within 48 hours, something unprecedented within this organization. And that is a fantastic thing to hear. And of course, we had tons of fun. We had a lot of psychological safety with the teams. We had cross-functional teams. We had lots and lots of pie. And I can tell you that slice of pecan pie that I had that day is probably one of the best slices of pie that I've ever had. Our engineering team, being engineers, decided to do everything themselves. So these were the trophies that were actually created by the teams from scratch. One of them, I don't know why, had a laser etcher in their basement. And so all these are etched by them as well. And if you look on the far right, you can see there is an upturned pie, which was the award that we gave for the epic fail. And what we wanted to do is say it is okay to fail. Psychological safety needs to improve. We want to embrace failure as long as you can fail fast, fail often, and fail cheap. And as a result of that, the failure prize was actually more than the grand prize that we were offering, because we wanted to signal how important it is to embrace failure within the organization. Again, rethink, reimagine. There are many ways that you can tackle the same problem, but the most important things are to figure out how you can have fun, how you can think in a different way, and how you can motivate and excite people as you are trying to transform your organization. So how do you bring entrepreneurship as part of your culture? In my interactions with a number of organizations over the last, I want to say 6 to 10 years, I've identified 4 areas where you can start rethinking and reimagining your processes and your approaches: execution, collaboration, communication, and enablement. And with all these 4 themes, please make sure that you always have fun, because that is one of the most important things. You want to have joy in everything that we do. One of my primary beliefs is that happy people are productive people. And so I've tried to do everything possible to make my people happy, because I know everything else takes place after that. So how can you drive entrepreneurship within your organization? Start small. It doesn't have to be a huge, grand proposal that you're doing. Start with a small experiment. What process or activity can you rethink or reimagine? Maybe you've thought of something as you were listening to these stories. Maybe there's something that is really niggling in your brain or nagging you that you really want to address or you want to get rid of. Start there. Over the next 6 weeks, conduct experiments, track the results. Data is really important, so keep tracking them, keep measuring them. And then the most important thing is share. You can use the hashtag entrepreneur on any of your favorite social medias and share the stories of how you help bring entrepreneurship within your organization and how you made a difference. You can also email me at that particular email address and allow me to sing songs about your stories, allow me to be a bard of your transformation, not only in your company, but also other things that you've helped with. Share the knowledge and share the wealth, because when you start sharing and you start changing and bringing happiness within people, you elevate their quality of life, you help them become happy, and you help them bring that joy and happiness within everything that they do, which is so important in this day, because we have been going through a lot of adversity, and a small amount of joy is really helpful and beneficial for all of us. Thank you.